Alright, I am here today to do my ultimate March Madness bracket. This is going to include a lot of upsets, and hopefully we'll stray from the chalk brackets that I have tended to make. So, let's get into it. Frick. Okay. A big bracket. I like that better. Awesome. Alright. Bracket. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, there we go. Let's create our bracket. Oh, you pass. Okay. Alright. First off, Gonzaga versus Norfolk App State. I have App State winning that game, but I have to go Gonzaga. They're just too good. Oklahoma, Mizzou. I think Oklahoma are favored by a few people, but Mizzou just have such a great record against good teams, so I would definitely pick them to go through. Oh, thank you. Thank you for something that I don't want at all. I'm going to pick Mizzou. Creighton versus UC Santa Barbara. I think you have to go UCSB. I mean, in upsets, free throw percentage is such a huge thing, and they have a great one, and also Creighton looked kind of weak in their conference championship, so I'll be taking UCSB. Now UVA, Ohio, I've heard a lot about Ohio upsetting UVA, but I still think UVA can win that game. I still think they can. Yeah. Now on to USC, Wichita State, Drake. I have Drake winning that game, but I'll have USC winning here. I think they're just too strong. The Spartans are incredible. Kansas versus East Washington, but clearly Kansas is gonna win. They're just a good team. Obviously, they're not really competing for the title, I don't think, but they could make a run, I guess. Oregon, VCU. I think VCU are clinically underrated, so I'll take them. And Iowa is just a shoo-in on Grand Canyon. Now, if I could figure out how to get to the bottom half of the bracket, that would be great. Oh, there we go. I'm just dumb. Okay, in the East, we have Michigan versus Texas Southern. I have Texas Southern, and they're just going to lose to Michigan. I mean, I'm not picking a 1-16 loss here. Not, like, up in arms about it. I'll take LSU here. I think Bonaventure is good, but I just think LSU have more solid wins. So, I'll take them in a one-on-one. Colorado, Georgetown. I don't get the hype about Georgetown. I mean, they're good, but they had a losing record going into their conference championship. And just because you went on a win streak doesn't mean, like, automatically you're going to be beating this 5 seed. Even if they are weak. So I'm going to take Colorado. FSU, UNCG, I think a lot of people are overrating FSU, underrating UNCG. Do I think they could get it done? Yes, and I'll pick them. I'll take the upset, take the chance. Especially because I would love to see them upset. BYU versus MSU, UCLA. I'm going to take Michigan State to win that game. But then I think BYU are a little underrated here, so I'm going to take them to go through. Texas versus Abilene Christian, actually. And I have somebody who I know, big fan of Abilene Christian, so how could I not? How could I not pick them? UConn, Maryland, I think they're both somewhat underrated teams. The fact that they got seeded against each other is a bit unfair. I think UConn are a bit underseeded, but I'll go UConn. Bama Iona, I just don't see the upset here for Iona. Obviously, they could do it, but they just won't. Let's be honest. Now, moving on to the Midwest, you have Illinois v. Drexel. I think Illinois are too good to not pick here. I mean, they're favorited to go to the Final Four. I think somewhat they're favorited to go to the championship game on this side of the bracket. Depends who you ask, though. Loyola Chicago versus Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech just lost one of their best guys to COVID, so I have to go Loyola Chicago. Previously, I had Georgia Tech and somewhat had them upsetting Illinois, but I don't see it anymore. I don't think it's going to happen. Tennessee here is just too good. I don't think that one needs much explaining. They're just a good team, and they got a good seeding. Oklahoma State Liberty. I think Liberty are kind of a great shooting team, but I don't think it's going to push them past Cade Cunningham. So I have to go Oklahoma State and just trust in the rest of the team, basically, to get the job done. South Dakota State, or not South Dakota State, San Diego State, my bad, versus Syracuse. I think Syracuse are way overseeded here. Granted, they have a unique system, and they could probably, beat any unprepared team, but if you think San Diego State are not going to be taking everything they can into this chance, I mean, they don't get a lot of chances, so I think they're going to win out that game. I was looking for maybe an upset here, but then you look at all the stats, and it's just pitiful for an upset of West Virginia. They're too good. They are somewhat one-dimensional, but still, one dimension can work. Doesn't need to be a multifaceted attack. Doesn't need to be like an incredible defense. They're gonna win. Clemson Rutgers. I think Rutgers could upset here, but I have Clemson upsetting. Or not upsetting. Just winning. What am I doing here? I have Clemson winning. I think they're both somewhat good teams. I wouldn't say they're great, but I think Clemson just has a solid offense. So, yeah. Houston, Cleveland State. Now, obviously, Cleveland State, luckiest team in basketball. This is not my metric. This is Ken Palm's metric, which is nationally acclaimed for being good. But still, Houston is Houston. Come on. And then let's get back up to the South region. Baylor versus, honestly, I don't even know which team that is. I just pick Baylor every time. UNC, Wisconsin. These teams are both underseeded. Do I think Wisconsin could win? Not a chance, because I go to UNC, and we're going to win. So, that's that. It's a dumb question to ask if Wisconsin can win. They cannot. So, goodbye. Nova Winthrop. I think Nova are really tailing off this season terribly, and Winthrop have been basically almost undefeated in their season. They're 23-1. I know everybody likes to cite that. I'm going to cite it too. They beat up on bad teams, and they're going to beat up on another bad team in Villanova. Purdue versus, I'm sorry, I forget the name, North Texas. I think Purdue are good. They're always in the shadows somewhat, but they do win a couple games usually every year, so I have to put them through. They're the 4th seed anyways. It makes sense. Texas Tech, 6th seed versus Utah State, the 11th seed. A lot of people cite this as a possible upset. I'm going to go along with them and say Utah State upset. I think Texas Tech just are not very lucky, and they play hard games, but it doesn't matter if you have a hard schedule if you can't win against easy opponents too. Now, Arkansas versus Colgate. I would love to see Colgate upset here. Do I think they will? Probably not. I think Arkansas are definitely overseeded. Colgate are somewhat underseeded, but I still think, that's a big upset to pull. I don't see it happening from Colgate. They're not going to be able to shut down Arkansas. Fast-paced team. I mean, it's just difficult. Now, Florida, Virginia Tech, I think they're both somewhat bad here. If it was up to me, I would not put either of them through. But I'll pick Florida because why not? They're the higher seed. So, yeah, I guess they get it through. Ohio State over Oral Roberts. Unfortunately, I can't pick Oral Roberts here. I mean, I could, but I won't. So, I refuse that. And now we get to move on to the round of 32. Second round. And we're going to start right back here. Now, as far as Ohio State, Florida, I already said my opinion on Florida. I think Ohio State is also a very solid team. They're one of the better 2 seeds. They're not really overseeded, in my opinion. They deserve to be there. They'll go through. Now, Utah State or Arkansas. I think Arkansas definitely are overseeded. Do I see Utah State beating them, though? No. I think Utah State are pretty much where they're supposed to be. And although you can upset Texas Tech, you're not going to upset a 3-seed Arkansas, despite them being maybe overseeded. Working our way back to Purdue-Winthrop, I think Purdue just have no team personality, no team culture, and I think it's an issue there. I could see Winthrop upsetting here, for sure. So, UNC-Baylor, as a UNC student, I have to go UNC. I mean, it's just the obvious choice. We're better. We are better. And we win close games. We're not going to talk about the Florida State game at the end of our season, but we do win other games. So, we're going to move on for now. Now, in the Midwest, Clemson v. Houston. I think Houston are good, but I've seen them look better against their opponents. They don't really play much of anyone. And I think Clemson play better teams, so I'm going to go with Clemson with a massive upset, 7v2, knocking out one of the arguably top 8 teams in the tournament. San Diego State versus West Virginia. I think West Virginia really are favored in this matchup, but they're very one-dimensional again, and San Diego State plays good defense. So I'm going to have San Diego State upsetting them and setting up a 6v7 later on. Tennessee versus Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State, great player, Cade Cunningham. Let's just make him the star of the show. I mean, he could win. He could win that game for them. And Tennessee are similar to Purdue. They don't have much personality, I don't think. So, I could see them losing. Illinois, Loyola, Chicago. I think everyone wants Loyola Chicago to go through and repeat their great Final Four run. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I know they're underseeded, but are they going to knock off Illinois with 2 great NBA prospects? No, they're not. It's just a bad seeding for them. Moving on to the East with UConn, Bama. I think UConn are underrated, and you know what? Let's do it. I'm so brave picking UConn. I know, I have so much to risk here. BYU, Abilene Christian. I think Abilene Christian would only get through Texas because of turnovers and sort of sloppy play that they are able to benefit from. I don't see BYU as the same type of team as Texas. I could see them just basically going surgical on Abilene Christian. So, I don't see the 14 seed going through to round 3, the Sweet 16. Now, moving on to Colorado UNCG, the Spartans, let's see, free throws, yeah. I think a lot of it is decided on free throws as far as the lowest upsets, and UNCG just doesn't have the numbers, so Colorado will win that one anyways. They're the better seed, it makes sense. Michigan LSU, I know people like having Michigan lose early to really either of these, LSU or St. Bonaventure, but I think Michigan are stronger than people give them credit for. They should go through past LSU. We'll give them the chance. Let's go up. Can I go up? There we go. Okay. Gonzaga, Mizzou. I think Mizzou have great upset wins in this year, but is it enough to upset Gonzaga? I don't know about that. I think I'm gonna have Gonzaga going through. It just doesn't seem like Mizzou could really match their level of talent. Gonzaga can win the one-on-ones with basically every team. So you need a system there. UCSB versus UVA. I think UVA have a great system. UCSB could easily dismantle them, especially if they have a tricky time with Ohio, and then they're basically playing off their back foot. But if you have the system there and you have good players, you're there for a reason at the 4 seed. So I think Virginia go through, unfortunately. Onto USC, Kansas. I think the Spartans are underrated and Kansas are somewhat chokers. Not that I have any evidence to back that up, but I'm going to go with not UNC, that's over there. USC to upset Kansas. VCU, Iowa. I think Iowa are not really my championship team 2 seed. Obviously, I believe they're the last 2 seed in terms of just pure rank, but they're still gonna outplay VCU in my opinion. They have more talent, they are, the bigger school. It just makes sense. Now on to my third lap with the Sweet 16 with Gonzaga UVA. Gonna keep doing this in a snake format. I think Gonzaga are great. I think UVA are great. I don't want to root for UVA, but I will pick them to upset Gonzaga and topple the king here because A, I don't want to see Gonzaga. B, I think their undefeated record is totally oversighted, totally overrated. I don't want to see it anymore in this bracket. USC, Iowa. I think Iowa are good again, but I think if USC are starting to heat up, they could just topple Iowa. It wouldn't be that hard. They're only a 2 seed. I say that knowing they're top 8, but they are only a 2 seed. They're not the 1 seed where it's just like logarithmic dominance. So I'm going to pick USC to upset there. Now let's move to the bottom. Michigan, Colorado. I know people like to have Michigan again losing here, but are they better than Colorado? To me, yes they are. I think they're a solid team. People underrate them. I'm not a Michigan fan. I do know a Michigan fan, but I'm not a Michigan fan, so hopefully there's no bias there. But then BYU, UConn. I think UConn will be struggling to continue after a hard Bama win, but then I think BYU haven't really played anyone, so why should I pick them? They're basically cold on real competition, but I think that's somewhat of what an actual season looks like, and I think BYU will be better at staying in their groove, so I'm going to pick them over UConn. I think UConn cooled down after upsetting Bama. Moving on to Illinois versus Oklahoma State. I think previously Oklahoma State I had coasting on Cade Cunningham, but you can't do that against Illinois where they also have NBA talents. I think Illinois as a team are better. They have had some questionable games. People don't talk about that enough. But in terms of who do I think will win this game, it's Illinois more than 50% of the time. Now on to San Diego State, the 6th seed versus Clemson, the 7th seed. I would love to see Clemson as a 7 seed reach the Elite 8, but do I think they have as good of a system, as good of a defense as San Diego State? No. I think San Diego State will probably be able to outscore them, not by scoring a lot, but simply by shutting them down and playing their game. So I'm going to have San Diego State advancing, setting up double 1 and 6 matchups here. Moving up to the South Division, you're going to have UNC versus Winthrop. I don't think Winthrop can beat UNC, especially with their big men. I think UNC's talent level is above them. I want to have UNC going through anyways. UNC into the Elite 8. They have tons of experience anyways. Arkansas versus Ohio State. I think Arkansas, I've mentioned, are a bit overseeded. Ohio State, I don't think are so much. I think they're a more solid team. So I'm going to have Ohio State going through and playing UNC. And since I've done a lap, we're going to move on to the Elite 8 now. I think this is where it ends for the Tar Heels, unfortunately, but there's nothing wrong with going to the Elite 8. I think Ohio State are just the better team, a 2 seed anyways. UNC may have deserved a 7 seed or arguably a 6 seed, but that's still lower than Ohio State, and I don't think we have continuous upset potential. Moving on to Illinois, South. I don't know why I keep saying South. San Diego State. I think Illinois are a great team. San Diego State have a great system. In the close games, I would tend to favor Illinois. I don't know that it'll be a close game, but I'm going to refer to that logic because it's all I have now. Michigan, BYU. I think here I'm going to trust the people and say Michigan will lose because they don't seem very stable. Although they're gaining traction by getting here and beating some decent teams in LSU and Colorado, I think BYU are just a solid team, very underrated, and definitely 8-5-6 C's could tire out and knock out a Michigan team that kind of looks cold now. And then our last Elite 8 matchup, UVA versus USC. I think UVA have a great system. They could probably shut out USC. Not shut out, shut down. Nobody's going to hold a team to 0 points. But I think the Cavaliers are a bit underrated in this tournament. So I'm going to have them going through. Now on to the Final Four. You have the 4 seed UVA versus the 6 seed BYU, and the 2 seed Ohio State versus the 1 seed Illinois. I think BYU are good. I think UVA's system is good. Do I think BYU could beat their system? Yes. I think BYU will end up beating UVA and advance themselves to the championship game in a massive sleeper run. Ohio State, Illinois. I think Ohio State are a great team. They have great playmakers, but they're nothing like Illinois. I think Illinois just has them so far out of the water with talent, and they have a good coach. They have just played decently well all season, especially if they get this kind of momentum leading up to this. They'll feel good, they'll play well, they will make it to the championship game. Now, Illinois versus BYU. BYU are solid, but I don't like Mormons. No offense, Mormons, but it's kind of weird. So I'm gonna pick Illinois. Also, I'm from Illinois anyways, so it makes sense. Let's go Illinois. My score prediction, I think Illinois score decently well, so I'm gonna go 78. And since they are the 1 seed against the 6 seed, and they're probably going to vastly outclass them, I think it'll be 78 to 65 or something like that. We're going to save that. And there we are. A beautiful Illinois win. Celebrate with some deep dish, some sausages, go to a Cubs game afterwards. Nothing like it. Windy City, miracle.